everyone. Thanks again for tuning into the Sins Workshop podcast. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. All right, today we're going to be talking about The Revolution of Jack Frost by K.M. Robinson. And I am sad to say I was bitterly disappointed by this novel. When I first heard of this novel, I thought it was going to be, kind of about Jack Frost. I thought there would be more fantasy to the story. And to be perfectly honest, there's no fantasy in the story. It is strictly science fiction. And I think one of my issues with it was the inconsistent writing. It centers around a group of people who live in something reminiscent of a giant snow globe under, really deep underground. And what I think is really inconsistent is the language, the dialogue between the characters. There are times where it's suggested that they do know that they are living in a snow globe, and then other times where they have no clue. So I think that's probably my biggest issue, because early on I was just like, okay, they know that they're living in this giant snow globe. And so wait, they don't know they're just living in a giant snow globe. It was very inconsistently written, and it was somewhat confusing, because I thought these characters were aware of their living circumstances, but it turns out they're not. So the ultimate revelation of the characters' situation is underwhelming, because you really don't have enough time to connect to it. Adding to the confusion is the poor pacing. This story, the Revolution of Jack Frost, it takes way too long to develop. The story follows Genesis. She's a girl living in a snow globe. She's dating another character named Jack. They are living in a globe where the seasons change unexpectedly, creating a dystopic world for the reader. It's an interesting concept, don't get me wrong. It is part of the reason why I was interested in reading it. However, how is this supposed to be a retelling of Jack Frost? You know what I mean? Because that's how this story... come on, the Revolution of Jack Frost, you think it's going to be a retelling of Jack Frost. What? Because this one character's name is Jack, and their world is mostly winter half the time? It's really... As far as a retelling of Jack Frost, you're completely disappointed. I would suggest, if you really want a good retelling or interpretation of Jack Frost, you need to read Seasons of the Storm. That's a good novel. This one was just... It left me confused. I keep thinking, how is this a retelling of Jack Frost? What, because his name is Jack? That's not enough. Because their world is in winter, that's, again, not enough. It's not enough. And I was not thrilled with it. I didn't really appreciate it. I was left confused and utterly unsatisfied. The story also lacks substance. It is poorly paced. I already established that. But it also lacks detail. It takes too long to connect the reader to the fact that this is part of an experiment. However, what is really lackluster are the characters. You've got characters like, are they friends? Are they not friends? It's almost like no one likes Jack except for Genesis. That's how it feels like. And yet these people are supposed to be his best friends. Once they're just like instantly suspicious of Jack, and it didn't make sense to me. I'm just like, you're all supposed to be best friends. You all have no idea you're living in an experiment. What is so suspicious about Jack? There's really nothing suspicious about his behavior until they actually see him on one of the snowmobiles. That is by far the only suspicious thing he does. Otherwise, he is kind of a great guy. I just think the dynamics were unbelievable. And I think Jack kind of falls short as well as a character. I also didn't really believe his romance with Genesis. It felt very two-dimensional, their romance. I think that just goes in hand with the lackluster personalities. I don't think any of these characters shined. I really was kind of bored reading them. They're not memorable. If I didn't have my notes in front of me right now, I do not think I'd be able to remember anyone's name except for Jack, and it's only because his name is in the title. It was just a very bitter disappointment. I just wasn't thrilled with it. Unfortunately, it let me down. It did let me down. So, this was The Revolution of Jack Frost by K.M. Robinson. I have to give it 2 stars, and I think I'm kind of being generous with the 2 stars, to be perfectly honest with you. I think I am being generous. There's nothing else to say. This is probably going to be one of my shortest podcasts because it was just a mess. To me, I didn't think it was engaging at all. There was no personality. It lacked cohesion. It struggled with the pacing. It just didn't do a good job building up this world and building up these characters. But that's my opinion. And maybe there's someone out there who's going to love this book. Who knows? But once again, this was The Revolution of Jack Frost. A soft 2 stars. If you want to go ahead and purchase the book, off a bookshop.org. If you want to go ahead and rent the book, which I kind of really recommend. I do recommend giving this book a shot. I'm never not going to recommend the book because authors do pour a lot of heart and soul in them. So check out the book from your local library. Please support this podcast by liking it and sharing it with all your book-loving friends. And on that note, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Happy reading.